Thank you for inviting me to speak, and I am very, very ashamed that I can't speak Italian now. I'm going to roughly stick to my text and get the key messages across, but I think it's only fair, as so many of you are standing, that I actually stand as well and actually suffer along with you. My own research career began in 1993, and it was very, very different back then because no one had thought about homophobia in the context of school. In the UK at that time, we had a piece of legislation called Section 28 of the Local Government Act, and it was introduced to prevent cities from supporting any initiatives that were seen to promote homosexuality as a pretended family relationship. And we have no idea to this day what a pretended family relationship is. It was the most pernicious and dangerous piece of legislation ever presented to the United Kingdom around lesbian and gay issues. It was presented by Margaret Thatcher, who was the then Prime Minister. And I have to say, to the undying shame of my university, the person who first drafted the legislation was the Chancellor of Brunel University. And I now sit in a building that bears his name, and we do lots of gay things. Yes! What I tried to do all the way back then was to look at the long-term effects of bullying. It had never been looked at before. And actually, this all started when I was an undergraduate. And it was one rainy day, and I was in the library, and I was just flicking through psychology journals, and I came across an article written by an American professor called Brian Gilmartin, and it was a study of love shyness amongst men. And this study showed that men who reported more love shyness, i.e. they had difficulties in forming and maintaining relationships in adulthood, were more likely to have been victimized at school. But the really interesting thing wasn't the finding, it was the methodology. He had removed 30 people from the sample because they were gay or bisexual. And basically, I wondered why. And he had argued that one of the problems that he faced was that in order for his research to be valid, it was necessary that the men interviewed did not include those who had a homosexual or bisexual orientation, because he believed that young men who are heterosexually inactive and are themselves heterosexual are more likely to be mislabeled as homosexual and therefore would confuse the data. I read this article several times and really didn't understand the reasons why 30 people should be removed. And also I thought, well, that's a big enough sample to actually do some further work. And he never did. So I looked around for any research that talked about sexual minorities and the long-term effects of victimization. And that was back in 1988. And at that point, there was nothing. And then I decided, well, the thing I need to do is actually go and research this. But it was only when I became a university lecturer that I was able to return to this issue. When I was a postgraduate student, my university did not wish me to study this issue. And I studied something else, which was incredibly boring, but you know. And it was only after I'd been appointed to the University of Luton that I was able to study homophobic bullying, but we didn't call it that back then. And it was with the support of my dean, Professor Kate Robinson, that I got £500 that actually resulted in this. £500. And she worked on the principle that, well, gays must be bullied too. And that's the only time I've actually thought, finally, someone's got it. Because I'm not quite sure people get it even today. So I'm very pleased to be here and to be talking about this issue, which has taken 23 years of my life, and probably will take the next 20 before I retire. So I'm very pleased to still be here. And I want to thank most sincerely Vittorio Lingiardi for his championing of the book to be translated into Italian. And all of you who've come here and all of those supporting me coming to speak here, and particularly the European Congress, Il Saggiatore, and indeed all of the organizations that are sponsoring this event. So only yesterday there was a judge in Ohio, paid from the public purse, and lesbians, gays, and bisexual, and transgender citizens, and gender non-conforming citizens all pay their taxes that pay his salary. He said he would not perform a marriage because it was against his personal religious conviction. And the irony is, the United States does not allow religion to interfere with law or politics. So the key to combating homophobia is through empathy, through understanding the experiences of others, to find common ground upon which we can build positive relationships. This will not be much of a surprise to any of you here today, but perhaps the Mayor of Venice would like to reflect upon his decision and maybe make schools a little safer by keeping the books on the shelves. Thank you.
La strada tra, diciamo, il riconoscimento e il rispetto dell'altro e la protezione della cultura e l'impedimento della censura è una strada molto legata. E mi sembra abbastanza incredibile che la ricerca scientifica ci dice che il decreasing del bullismo si ottiene attraverso interventi di formazione e di sensibilizzazione scolastica e allo stesso tempo sapere, come giustamente lui ha messo in luce, che si può vivere in un paese in cui dalle librerie e dalle biblioteche delle scuole vengono sottratti i volumi, i libri, i testi che producono questa sensibilizzazione e questa formazione e questa educazione relazionale. Viviamo davvero in una situazione paradossale. Ora, intanto do il benvenuto al collega, al dottor Riccardo Bettiga, al presidente dell'Ordine degli Psicologi della Lombardia. E non è un benvenuto rituale perché voi non avete idea dell'importanza che ha il sostegno della comunità professionale e della comunità scientifica per poter portare avanti un linguaggio di rispetto in questo Paese.
Mi piace pensare che la comunità professionale degli psicologi su questi temi sia unita come su nient'altro, quindi la cosa importante che stiamo anche cercando di fare in questo periodo è di far arrivare i messaggi e le competenze della comunità professionale degli psicologi anche fuori, perché comunque è anche utilizzando la credibilità professionale e scientifica della nostra disciplina che noi facciamo la nostra parte e facendo arrivare messaggi come questo all'esterno, quegli eventi di cui fa parte anche questa serata, che come ordine abbiamo promosso, rientrano tutti in una campagna strategica, perché la diffusione della cultura psicologica è diffusione del benessere rientra comunque in uno dei compiti fondamentali che una comunità come la nostra deve fare, e noi come ordine, mi permetto di parlare a nome di tutti, abbiamo e dobbiamo fare.